A person opens a banking app. The app smiles. The number smiles back. Everything is calm. Birds chirp. Somewhere a finance YouTuber nods slowly. The number is not big. The number is not small. The number is responsible. This number has been sitting there for years, doing nothing, absolutely nothing, like a decorative rock, but with anxiety attached. This is called an emergency fund. Emergency sounds serious. Fund sounds important. Together they sound like a bunker made of common sense. Nothing is happening, which is good, because if something did happen, you'd finally feel useful for once. Cut to time passing. Fast. Then slower. Then weirdly faster again. The number stays the same. Life does not. Somewhere in the distance, inflation stretches like a cat. Quietly. Menacingly. No sound effect. Just vibes. This story is not about being broke. This story is about being comfortable. Comfortable enough to stop thinking. Comfortable enough to trust a system that politely eats you while apologizing. The emergency fund feels like armor, but it's made of cardboard painted silver. Shiny, reassuring, flammable. This video exists because nobody explains the boring part. They explain how to save. They explain where to put it. They do not explain what happens after. They say, 6 months of expenses. They do not say, and then what, genius? This is why we're here. Not to scream, not to panic, just to quietly stare at the math until it gets awkward. The emergency fund works perfectly. For emergencies. Car breaks. You pay. Teeth betray you. You pay. Life does a little prank. You pay again. In that moment, the fund feels like a hero. A small beige hero. But emergencies are rare. Anxiety is daily. Most of the time, the money just sits, watching, judging, losing value in real time like a sad live stream no one comments on. Inflation doesn't knock. It just enters, takes a chair, starts eating snacks. Your money buys less. You buy the same things. The difference evaporates politely. Nobody screams. Nobody warns you. The app still smiles. This is the trick. It feels safe because nothing bad happens suddenly. It's a slow leak, a financial carbon monoxide. You don't smell it. You just get tired. You're told to save more. So you do. You feel proud. Then prices go up. You save harder. You cut small joys. Coffee becomes a memory. Fun becomes a concept. The fund grows. Your freedom does not. You check your balance like it's a horoscope. Still there. Still safe. Still slowly becoming worse. This creates a loop. Save. Wait. Feel safe. Lose ground. Repeat. At no point does anyone say, by the way, this is a temporary tool, not a life strategy. The emergency fund was never meant to be a throne. It's a fire extinguisher. You don't admire it. You don't name it. You don't put all your hopes inside it. But people do. Because it's simple. And simple feels like control. Imagine this visually. The emergency fund is a medieval knight, standing very still. Armor slightly rusty. Sword never used. Around him, the village changes. Houses get bigger. Food gets pricier. The knight stays the same. Cut to a calendar flipping aggressively. Years pass. The knight blinks once. Graphs appear. They go up. Your fund stays flat. The graph looks disappointed in you. Cut to motivational quotes floating by. Cash is king. Safety first. Better safe than sorry. They echo. They distort. They start sounding like lullabies. Then silence. Then a quiet beep. Your purchasing power just died. Nobody attends the funeral. Here's the uncomfortable twist. The emergency fund doesn't fail you. You fail by asking it to do more than it was designed for. It's not evil, it's just limited. Like using a spoon to dig a tunnel. Cash feels safe because it doesn't move. But real life moves constantly. When everything else gets more expensive, staying still is the risk. The myth isn't save money. The myth is saving is enough. An emergency fund is a pause button, not a strategy, not a plan, not a personality. The moment it becomes your main move, time starts charging interest against you. This is the part nobody explains, because it's less catchy and slightly terrifying. Safety without growth isn't safety. It's just delayed stress. So here's the real question that lingers. How long can money sit still in a moving world before safe quietly becomes stuck? The emergency fund keeps sitting. It does not age gracefully. It just ages. At first, it felt powerful, a number with authority, a number that could handle things. Then the world updated its prices. No announcement, no patch notes. Rent learned a new number. Food reinvented itself. Electricity decided it deserves respect now. Your emergency fund stayed loyal to the past. It still remembers when this amount meant something. It tells stories about it, stories nobody asked for. Time passes again. Not dramatically, just enough to be annoying. You notice small things. Groceries feel heavier. Receipts feel longer. Your fund feels smaller without shrinking. This is confusing. Confusing things feel dangerous. So you avoid thinking. You tell yourself, "At least I'm not irresponsible." This sentence becomes a blanket, a warm one, slightly itchy. The emergency fund becomes a moral badge. You don't use it, you possess it. It sits there proving you're an adult, a real one, a person who knows things. You might not be winning, but you're definitely not losing dramatically, which is the modern goal. Meanwhile, inflation continues doing push-ups in the corner, quietly, consistently, with perfect form. It doesn't rush. It has patience. It knows most people confuse "nothing bad is happening" with "this is working." The fund is now part of your identity. You mention it casually, not out loud, internally. I have savings. That thought alone produces dopamine. Cheap dopamine, store brand dopamine, enough to keep you calm, not enough to move. At this stage, the emergency fund stops being protection and starts being permission. Permission to wait, permission to delay, permission to not decide. You're not stuck, you're preparing. You've been preparing for years. The emergency never arrives, but the cost of living does. Daily, aggressively. This is the quiet betrayal. Not dramatic enough to trend, not painful enough to panic, just constant enough to drain momentum. The fund doesn't explode. It erodes, like a cliff, wave by wave, very polite waves. Somewhere, a finance blog says, "Keep your emergency fund in a high-yield savings account." High yield. A cute phrase. It sounds like action. It feels like effort. The yield is still smaller than reality, but the word high does most of the emotional work. Your money earns interest. Life charges interest faster. Nobody tells you this directly, because it sounds rude. You start doing mental gymnastics. At least it's liquid. At least it's accessible. At least I can sleep. Sleep is good, but you're sleeping through a slow leak. Visually, imagine the fund as a bucket. At first, it's full, heavy, reassuring. Then tiny holes appear, very tiny, almost cute. You don't notice at first. Later, you notice you're refilling it constantly just to keep it at the same level. That's when something feels off, but not off enough to act. The emergency fund was never supposed to be the end. It was supposed to be the pause, a buffer between chaos and decisions. Instead, it became the decision. Here's the part that hurts a little. People defend their emergency fund like it's a pet. You suggest maybe it shouldn't be everything. They hear, "You're reckless." You suggest movement. They hear danger. You suggest growth. They imagine collapse. So they sit, together, with their perfectly behaved money. The irony is cruel. The fund exists to protect you from surprise expenses, but it quietly guarantees one. Future you will be more expensive. Cut to a visual of future you. Same person, just more tired. Bills louder, options fewer. Future you looks at the fund. It's still there, still responsible, still inadequate. This is when the myth completes itself. The emergency fund feels safe because it never challenges you. It doesn't demand learning. It doesn't require decisions. It doesn't expose mistakes. It just sits. And sitting feels like control when everything else feels unstable. The uncomfortable truth is not, don't have an emergency fund. That's stupid. The truth is, stopping there is expensive. Safety without strategy becomes stagnation. Stagnation becomes risk. Slow risk, invisible risk, the kind nobody warns you about because it doesn't sell thumbnails. This channel exists because of that silence. It Is Money Fables isn't about panic, it's about noticing. Noticing when common sense quietly turns into habit, when habit turns into dogma, when dogma starts costing you. The emergency fund myth survives because it feels moral. You're not greedy, you're not reckless, you're not chasing, you're just waiting. Waiting for what? The final image lingers, the fund still sitting, the world still moving. No explosion, no villain, no collapse, just distance growing. And that's the real ending. Not disaster, not success. Just the quiet realization that safety was never meant to be permanent. If this story felt uncomfortably accurate, that's the point. Like the video, subscribe. Because the next myth doesn't look dangerous either.